Aw yeah, it's good to be back, in more ways than one. Look, I'm sort of a jaded man. A lot of games and movies I loved as a kid usually don't hold up as much as I want them to, as an adult. Conversely, there's also things I disliked, but come to appreciate over the years. Unfortunately, I'm seeing more of the former in general, as I try and revisit the things I loved. But there is a certain game I wanted to revisit, not because coincidentally Star Wars Squadron is coming out soon, but because after replaying Jedi Outcast, which was kinda rough in places, I wondered if there was anything from old school Star Wars that I could go, I still love it like when I was a kid. And despite my doubts given my other experiences, I'm happy to announce that I can put those fears to rest, because Rogue Squadron is still amazing 20 years later.
We're taking heavy fire!
And I want to tell you why you should maybe give this game a shot in 2020. Though there is something I need to ask anyone who's interested in playing Rogue Squadron now, on PC specifically. A small little request that you'll thank me later. It's don't play this with a mouse. For the love of all things sacred like Baby Yoda, don't ever think of playing this game with a mouse and keyboard. It's jittery, erratic, and jerky. You often can't accurately line up your shots, with the aiming always skipping too many pixels, or refusing to budge just a couple pixels more. Against enemy static targets, the mouse controls are barely acceptable. But against enemy fighters during dogfights, Oy. Now, this isn't the fault of the game itself. Thankfully, after some fiddling, I was able to get the Xbox 360 controller to work. I'll put the how-to links in the description. And I'm glad it worked out because it's so much more smooth and tight with a controller. Accurately lining up shots, pulling off responsive maneuvers, and even the AT-AT tow cable sections becomes buttery smooth.
Cable out, let her go!
Now with that public service announcement out of the way, I want to finally get into why this game still holds up. "20 years have passed, and I still had a blast playing this game. So much so, I don't remember having this much fun in quite some time. Obviously, a lot of factors come into play. I don't get to play many AAA games nowadays, given how long and expensive they are. I found Jedi Fallen Order too long at 20 hours. If anything, I like shorter games lately. But that's another video for another day. Back to Rogue Squadron. Of course, nostalgia plays a big factor. I do recall coming home from school and putting a lot of hours into the game over several months, which I think may help explain my disappearing vision. Speaking of vision, the first thing worth pointing out is the presentation. How the game nails the look and feel. A lot of early 3D games from the 90s don't exactly hold up, often for good reason.
What's happening?
Yeah, oof. Those angular character models really don't hold up. But Rogue Squadron looks pretty good 20 years later. Besides the decently well-rendered ships and vehicles, Rogue Squadron didn't have to render a single 3D human character. The only humans were just sprites. Now clearly, the 3D models don't hold up to Battlefront 2. But it looks solid enough for a 90s game. It at least didn't subject me to whatever this was. I sorta even like the sprites. They're kinda adorable. Plus, seeing TIE Fighter spin out of control as they're plummeting to the ground never gets old. But the best part of the game's presentation is incredible audio work and amazing soundtrack.
Archer, see what you can do back there.
Factor 5 really went above and beyond with the sound department. They think Factor 5 took the stock Star Wars sound effects that were in Jedi Knight and other games and for the first time, got me fully immersed. Whereas the other games didn't because they were so quiet. For shooters, they all feel very quiet and eerie most of the time. But Rogue Squadron?
More fighters inbound on 17.28.
You're constantly bombarded with the sounds of blaster fire, the shrieking of TIE fighters, and a unique bombastic score. I think the thing that I love the most about the audio is the completely original soundtrack by Chris Hosbeck, who composed it specifically for this game. It's something I find that's way too omitted in other Star Wars titles. The lack of any original soundtrack, I mean. There's a few exceptions like Knights of the Old Republic and Dark Forces, for example, but by far most Star Wars games just reuse the John Williams score. Plus the voice acting is actually dang good too. You got a Mark Hamill stand-in sounding pretty on point.
There it is. Rogue, use your ion cannon. We want to disable the train, not destroy it.
LucasArts managed to even get a Golden Globe Award-winning actress, who starred in Romeo and Juliet and Death on the Nile.
Somehow I don't think Monsieur Poirot is a very keen reader of romantic novels, Mother.
To voice a character called Kason Moore.
This is Lieutenant Jason Moore of the Imperial 128th to Unidentified Y-Wing.
But more on her later. The next great thing about the game is the variety of missions that kept things feeling fresh.
My guess is that they have some sort of generator nearby. Do you think you can help us out? You got it.
Rogue Squadron hardly ever feels repetitive or samey. They could have easily just had the game play out like, oh, there's enemy fighters in this area, go clear them out, as the main or sole objective for every mission. And the few missions in the game that do have you wiping out every enemy target are the weaker missions. But thankfully the rest of the game always has you doing different objectives. The best missions are the escort missions, which unfortunately in general are notorious in the video game community. Too often the things or characters that we have to protect die and it forces the player to replay the entire mission again. But I think Rogue Squadron gets it right by keeping the missions short. There's a good deal of escort and defense missions, which really keeps the stakes high. You're trying to protect cities, convoys, transports, and rebel commandos doing operations.
Rogue Squadron, where's our cover?
So they come off as believable military missions. There's also a couple of novel missions too, like you needing to disable an armored train. There's also a mission where you have to destroy Imperial Mark containers while avoiding the non-Imperial ones. And the last level has you going up against these huge world devastators that you take out by crippling its legs until... awesome. And I can't stress enough how important it is to contextualize the missions and have each objective have a sense of purpose. Play a game like Jedi Knight, and it gives you a broad objective, yet you end up dealing with obstacles and challenges that have absolutely nothing to do with the story or goals. And to top it off, my last and final point on why the game is still amazing is just because of how short and sweet it is.
The shuttle is away. Rogue Leader, get your squadron out of there.
I think what makes Rogue Squadron just a blast to jump in and play is how quick and tight each mission is. Most missions last like 5 to 10 minutes on average. It's kind of perfect for players who just want to quickly jump in and play something exciting and visceral. Compare that to other Star Wars titles at the time, where levels went on from 20 to 40 minutes on average, with many obstacles and challenges feeling more like filler and padding than actually being tied to the story. How you go from just one Stormtrooper squad here, wander around, encounter another squad, wander around more, rinse and repeat. But Rogue Squadron throws you straight into the action. Even the quiet moments only last like 30 seconds. Just enough time to take a breather before getting right back into the action again. I know some people have argued that this game is way too short, how you can beat it in 2 to 3 hours, but honestly, I never felt like it was too short or too long. It felt just about right. So that wraps up my main reasons why this game still holds up today. I know, I omitted a lot of things, but these are just the things that just stood out for me. So that's all the positives about the game. Now, what about the negatives about the game itself? Well, most of my issues are actually minor pet peeves. Right, let's get through them. The AI doesn't really put much of a fight, friendly or enemy, and that means enemy fighters, who only fly in prescripted flight paths, are only a danger if you get in front of them. They hardly ever decide to break off and hunt you down. There's no ace-on-ace dogfights between fighters, such as you going up against an experimental TIE fighter. There is one dogfight in the game though, but it's against his bulky Imperial shuttle. Remember the Y-Wing mission that went on too long? There's a few missions like that, where it's unclear how many enemy buildings you need to destroy to beat the mission. It's honestly more tedious than anything. But what is the weakest part about the game, or missed opportunity? It's the bare bones story that doesn't make the most use of a certain character. You could say it left me wanting more from Kaysen Moore. For the most part, the game's just a collection of barely connected if not unrelated missions, only tied together by you leading Rogue Squadron against the Empire. You play as Luke and Wedge, and all you do is just more or less take out Imperial targets and other odd jobs. There's no character arc for them, and yet, there is one character who seems set up to have a character arc. Unfortunately, they did bupkis with her. I'm talking about Kaysen Moore. Almost halfway into the game, an Imperial pilot, Kaysen Moore, decides to defect to the Rebel forces. She gives some Imperial targets and starts flying with Rogue Squadron. And then, after successfully defending a city late in the game, she comes across a Moff Cyrdan.
Kaysen Moore? Ah, of course.
Moff Cyrdan.
How pathetic. Allying yourself with those rebel criminals Rogue Squadron.
Who she personally bears a grudge against for terrorizing civilians while she served in the Empire. And so we finally have a villain in the game. And it sets up Kaysen Moore having a showdown with the Moff. And... oh, she was shot down? Wait, she was in a battle even?
Great job, Rogue Squadron. The Imperials won't get by Thera now.
Hey!
Hey, where are you?
Down on the ground, still waiting for someone to pick me up.
I'm on my way, Kaysen.
I genuinely had no idea she was in a fight to begin with. I mean, they have you play as Luke, and I don't remember ever hearing her voice during the mission until, yeah, after killing them off. Right. Kinda just awfully odd how Kaysen Moore, an Imperial defector, Hollywood actress, and was set up earlier to take on the villain,
There you are, you coward. Do you think you can get away in that shuttle?
was missing and only shows up after she was shot down. And now she needs a pickup from the boys? Yay, strong female character. And again, to be fair, Luke and Wedge don't have any character arcs themselves. Still, I think it would have been pretty cool to have players go for military-focused missions with Luke and Wedge, and then plop the players into playing Kaysen Moore, who actually had a personal conflict and arc set up for her. Some way of redeeming and atoning herself for the time she spent following orders for the Empire, and how she just stood by and watched, doing nothing as the Moff and the Empire terrorized the defenseless, but now gets to right her wrongs in a climactic showdown. That could have been a cool legacy for the game. And in spite of these issues... still a great game, still had a lot of fun replaying it, still amazing in 2020. Niggling issues aside, I'm happily surprised at how well this game aged. I'm definitely going to be returning to it from time to time, just for the quick burst of nostalgia and how it pumps me up with the tight, adrenaline-filled missions. And yes, I wish there was more Rogue Squadron content to play. I never got to play the sequels, since I never came across a GameCube here, and I'm aware there's Dolphin Emulator for the PC, but, well... it's genuinely unplayable. It's all because Factor 5 apparently made the most demanding GameCube title that barely anyone can run on their PC through Dolphin Emulator. It's a shame, given that I heard a lot of great things about those sequels. I'm still holding out hope that one day, LucasArts finally releases the cancelled Rogue Leaders game for the Switch and PC. It was intended for the Wii, and was pretty much finished, but due to strange legal and financial issues, the studio was shut down, along with Rogue Leaders. And LucasArts traded the Wii for the Kinect, I guess. I'm also aware that EA's Star Wars Squadrons is coming out. It looks like a lot of fun. I love small-scale team games. Hopefully I can afford it by launch day. Regardless, in the grand scheme of things, I guess I'm just happy that I got to enjoy Rogue Squadron back in the 90s, and as an adult. Very few games ever hold up from my childhood, and I'm glad that Rogue Squadron is one of those games.